There are moments, rare moments, when time itself seems to pause, not for the world, but for you. And this is one of those moments. You didn't just stumble upon this message. You didn't just randomly click, scroll, or pause here by accident. No, something deeper pulled you. Something unseen but undeniable guided your eyes to this exact point. And even now, as you listen, there is a quiet stirring in your spirit, a feeling you cannot fully explain, but you cannot ignore either. That feeling, that is not curiosity, that is recognition. Because somewhere deep inside you, you already know. You know that something in your life has been delayed. Something you prayed for. Something you worked for. Something you believed was right there, within reach. And yet it didn't happen. It paused. It slowed. It stopped. And no matter how many times you tried to make sense of it, it never quite added up. Why did it fall through? Why did it take so long? Why did it feel so close only to disappear? You've asked those questions in silence. Maybe late at night. Maybe in moments when no one else could hear your thoughts. And maybe, just maybe, you started to wonder if it was you. If you weren't ready. If you weren't worthy. If you somehow missed your moment. But hear this now and hear it clearly. This was not a denial. This was a divine interruption. And interruptions only happen when something greater is at stake. Archangel Michael stands in this moment, not as a distant symbol, not as a metaphor, but as a voice cutting through confusion. His presence does not come quietly when urgency is involved. And right now there is urgency. Because what you called a delay, heaven called a warning. Let that sink in. What you thought was a missed opportunity was actually a blocked danger. What you thought was bad timing was divine protection stepping in at the last second. What you thought was rejection was redirection wrapped in silence. But here's where it gets deeper. You weren't supposed to understand it immediately. In fact, if it had worked out the way you wanted, you would have walked straight into something you were not meant to carry. A situation that looked right on the surface, but beneath it carried consequences you could not yet see. And that is why this message found you now. Because the timing of revelation is just as important as the timing of delay. Here is something shifting in your awareness. You felt it, haven't you? A change in how you see people. A shift in how you respond to situations. A growing sensitivity to what feels right and what feels off. That is not random. That is preparation. Because before anything can be released to you, you must be able to discern it. And here is the truth that many will never hear. Not every open door is sent by God. Not every opportunity is aligned with your destiny. Not every yes is meant to be accepted. Some doors are distractions. Some paths are traps. Some blessings are actually burdens in disguise. And the only reason you were delayed is because you were about to walk into one of them. Think about it. Go back in your mind to that moment. That decision. That opportunity that didn't work out. That relationship that stalled. That plan that suddenly collapsed without explanation. At the time, it felt frustrating, confusing, maybe even painful. But what if I told you that collapse was intentional? What if I told you something unseen stepped in and said, "Not this one"? Because you were about to say yes to something heaven had already rejected. This is why the interruption had to be strong enough to stop you. Because a gentle nudge would not have changed your direction. You were determined. You were invested. You were ready to move forward. So heaven didn't whisper, heaven intervened. And now you are being called to see it differently. Not as a loss. Not as a failure. Not as a delay that set you back. But as a warning that protected you. A warning that came before the damage. A warning that came before the regret. A warning that came before the lesson would have cost you more than time. This is why you were chosen to hear this now. Because not everyone is ready to accept that their delay was actually mercy. Not everyone is willing to admit that what they wanted was not what they needed. But you are at a point where your spirit is ready for truth, even if that truth challenges everything you thought you understood. And this is only the beginning. Because what you were delayed from is only half the story. What you are being prepared for is far greater. But before that can be revealed, you must first understand why the delay happened in the first place. And that is exactly what is about to unfold next. Type "I trust the delay" in the comments if you feel this message stirring your spirit. Lesson code 1414 is now surrounding you. There is a truth you were never taught, a truth that most people will go their entire lives without ever understanding. And that truth is this: delay is not empty. Delay is not passive. Delay is not something that just happens. No, delay is active, is intentional, is strategic. And in your life right now it has been deeply, divinely orchestrated. Because what feels like nothing moving is actually everything being arranged. You've been watching the surface. You've been measuring time in days, weeks, maybe even months. You've been looking at what hasn't happened, what hasn't opened, what hasn't arrived. And from that perspective, it feels like you've been standing still. But you haven't been standing still. You've been standing in positioning. There is a difference. Because when heaven delays something, it is never to punish you. It is never to ignore you. It is never to deny you. It is always to protect you from something you cannot yet see, or to prepare something you are not yet ready to receive. And this is where many people get it wrong. They assume delay means disfavor. They assume delay means they've been overlooked. They assume delay means something is wrong with them. But what if the delay is actually proof that something is right with you? What if the delay is happening because what is coming is too significant to be rushed? Think about it. If everything had happened when you first wanted it, would you have handled it the same way you would now? Would you have recognized the red flags you can now see? Would you have had the strength, the clarity, the discernment you are beginning to develop? The honest answer is no. Because the version of you back there was not the version of you now. And that is exactly why the delay had to happen. You were being shaped in ways you didn't even realize. Your patience was being stretched. Your awareness was being sharpened. Your instincts were being refined. Situations that once confused you are now becoming clear. People you once trusted without question you now see with deeper understanding. That is not coincidence. That is transformation. Because before anything external changes, something internal must align. And that alignment cannot be rushed. Archangel Michael reveals something most people are not ready to hear. Sometimes the delay is not about what is coming, it is about what needs to be removed first. There were mindsets that had to shift, attachments that had to loosen, expectations that had to break, and yes, even certain people whose influence would have corrupted what was meant for you. If the blessing had arrived while those things were still in place, it would not have lasted. It would have been mishandled, misunderstood, or worse, taken from you. So instead of giving it to you too soon, it was held back. Not forever, but until you could carry it correctly. This is why your delay feels so specific, so targeted, so personal. Because it has been tailored to your growth, designed around your journey, timed according to your readiness, not your impatience. And here is where the deeper layer reveals itself. Not every delay is just about preparation. Some delays are about exposure. Exposure of what? of what was hidden around you, of what was not aligned with you, of what would have quietly damaged your path if it had been allowed to remain unnoticed. There were things happening behind the scenes that you were not meant to see immediately. Conversations, intentions, situations that looked harmless on the surface but carried consequences underneath. And if things had moved faster, you would have stepped into them blindly. But because of the delay, you now have the opportunity to see more clearly, to notice what feels off, to question what doesn't sit right, to pause instead of rushing. That pause is not weakness. That pause is wisdom being formed. And this is why you've been feeling a shift inside you lately. A hesitation where you used to be certain. A second thought where you once moved quickly. A quiet voice telling you to slow down, to observe, to wait just a little longer. That voice is not fear. That voice is guidance. Because when delay is sent as protection, it is often accompanied by awareness. And awareness is what separates those who repeat cycles from those who break them. You are being moved out of patterns you didn't even realize you were in. Patterns of rushing. Patterns of trusting too quickly. Patterns of saying yes before fully understanding what you were agreeing to. And now those patterns are being interrupted. Not to frustrate you, but to free you. So the next time you feel that tension, the feeling that things should have happened by now, remember this: what you are experiencing is not being held back. You are being held in place until everything around you is ready to support what is about to be released into your life. Because when it finally comes, it will not come with confusion. It will come with clarity. It will make sense. It will feel right. And most importantly, it will last. Type I see the purpose in the delay in the comments if this is speaking to you. Blessing code 2222 is now activating alignment in your life. There is something about waiting that most people misunderstand. They think waiting is empty. They think it is a space where nothing is happening, where time is being wasted, where life is somehow on pause. But what you are in right now, this season of waiting, is not empty at all. It is loaded. It is active. And more than anything, it is speaking. The problem is most people are not listening. Because waiting does not shout. It whispers. It does not force itself on you. It invites you to notice. And if you are not paying attention, you will miss the very warning that could change everything about your next move. Archangel Michael reveals that your waiting season is not just about preparation. It is about revelation. It is about showing you things now so they do not harm you later. And those revelations are subtle. They come in small moments, quiet observations, slight shifts that are easy to dismiss if you are still focused on what you have not yet received. Think about what has been happening around you lately. The conversations that feel slightly off. The energy of certain people that no longer feels the same. The situations that once excited you but now leave you with a strange hesitation. These are not random feelings. These are signals. Because when heaven delays something, it also begins to expose what is connected to it. You start to see patterns you ignored before. You start to notice inconsistencies in people you once trusted completely. You begin to feel discomfort in places that once felt familiar. And it is confusing at first, because nothing has changed on the surface. The same people are still there. The same opportunities still exist. The same paths are still available. But something inside you has shifted. That shift is not accidental. That shift is the warning. Because the delay created space. And in that space, clarity has been quietly growing. Clarity about who is truly aligned with you and who is only connected to a version of you that is no longer who you are becoming. Clarity about what is right for you and what only looked right because you were moving too fast to question it. And here is the part many people struggle to accept. Sometimes the warning is not about something dramatic. It is not always a loud betrayal or a clear rejection. Sometimes the warning is simply a feeling, a subtle unease that you cannot fully explain but cannot ignore either. That feeling is not there to confuse you. It is there to guide you. Because what is meant for you will not require you to override your peace in order to accept it. Let that settle in your spirit. If something requires you to silence your intuition, to ignore your discomfort, to push past what feels off just to make it work, then the delay you are experiencing right now is trying to save you from it. And this is why waiting can feel so uncomfortable. Because it forces you to sit with what you are starting to see. You can no longer rush past it. You can no longer distract yourself from it. You can no longer pretend everything is fine when something inside you is clearly saying it is not. This is where the warning becomes undeniable. Because now, you have a choice. You can either listen to what is being revealed or you can ignore it and move forward anyway. But understand this. The delay was the mercy. The warning is the responsibility. Archangel Michael makes it clear that what is being shown to you in this season is not meant to scare you. It is meant to prepare you. Because there are paths that look easy but lead to complications. There are people who appear supportive but carry hidden intentions. There are opportunities that seem perfect but are not sustainable. And if you had moved forward too quickly, you would not have seen any of it. That is why things slowed down. That is why plans stalled. That is why certain connection that became unclear. Because clarity requires time. And time reveals truth. You are now in a position where you can see more than you could before. You can sense more. You can discern more. And that is not something to ignore. It is something to trust. Because the warning within your waiting season is not just about avoiding the wrong path. It is about choosing the right one with confidence. It is about stepping forward without doubt because you have already seen what does not align. It is about moving with certainty because you no longer need to guess. And this is why your waiting season is sacred. It is the place where illusions are broken. It is the place where truth becomes clear. It is the place where your next decision is being shaped with wisdom instead of urgency. So do not rush out of it. Do not force movement just because you are tired of standing still. Because what you are seeing right now, what you are feeling right now is giving you the advantage you will need for what comes next. Type I receive the warning in the comments if you are ready to trust what is being revealed. Lesson code 3333 is now activating discernment around you. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this. Every revelation you receive is not just for you. It is a light meant to reach others who are still walking in confusion. When you choose to support this mission, you are not giving to a platform. You are sowing into souls that are waiting for their moment of clarity. The word says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, your seed can become someone else's breakthrough. I feel led to say this clearly. If this message stirred something in you, this is your moment to act, not later, not someday, but now. Your generosity becomes oil that keeps this light burning, reaching hearts that heaven is still calling back. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is right there on your screen. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. As you give, may doors open over your life that no delay can hold back, and may your obedience multiply into blessings you did not see coming. Step into this moment and release your seed. There is a layer to your life that cannot be seen with your physical eyes, but it is influencing far more than you realize. It is shaping outcomes, shifting timing, and quietly affecting the direction of your path. And the reason this section matters so deeply is because what you have been experiencing is not just natural, it is spiritual. You may have sensed it without having the words for it. That unexplainable resistance. That strange heaviness that appears at specific moments. That sudden confusion right when you were about to move forward with clarity. Those are not random interruptions. They are signals that something beyond the surface is at work. Archangel Michael reveals that every delay you have encountered has not only been protection from what is visible, but also from what is hidden. Because not every obstacle comes in the form of a clear problem. Some obstacles come as distractions. Some come as delays that push you toward the wrong decision out of frustration. And some come as opportunities that appear perfect, but are carefully positioned to pull you out of alignment. This is why discernment is no longer optional for you. It is necessary. Because the higher you rise, the more subtle the interference becomes. In earlier seasons of your life, the wrong paths were easier to identify. They were obvious. They came with clear warning signs, clear consequences, clear discomfort. But now, you are stepping into a level where not everything wrong will look wrong. Some things will look right but feel off. Some people will sound supportive but carry conflicting energy. Some opportunities will seem aligned but create inner tension you cannot explain. And this is where many people make their mistake. They cross what they see instead of what they sense. But your delay has been training you to do the opposite. It has been teaching you to slow down long enough to feel what is real, not just what appears to be real. Because spiritual forces rarely announce themselves directly. They operate through influence, through suggestion, through timing, through emotional pressure. Think about the moments when you felt rushed to make a decision. The urgency that seemed to come out of nowhere. The pressure to act quickly before something disappeared. That urgency was not alignment. Alignment does not rush you. Alignment does not pressure you. Alignment does not force you into decisions you have not had time to fully understand. What you felt in those moments was influence. Subtle, strategic influence designed to bypass your discernment and move you into action before you could fully process what you were stepping into. And this is exactly why the delay had to happen. Because without it, you would have moved too fast. You would have acted on what looked right without sensing what was wrong. You would have entered situations that would have slowly drained your clarity, your energy, your peace, without you even realizing it until it was too late. But now you are being awakened to something deeper. You are beginning to recognize that not everything is as it seems. That timing matters. That energy matters. That the way something feels is just as important as the way it looks. This is spiritual awareness, and it is growing in you right now. You may have noticed that you are questioning things more, pausing more, observing more. Situations that once felt simple now feel layered. Conversations that once seemed harmless now feel like they carry something beneath them. That is not overthinking. That is perception sharpening. Because the truth is, there are forces that do not want you to step fully into what is meant for you. Not because you are weak, but because you are becoming aware. And awareness removes their ability to influence you without your consent. This is why confusion has tried to increase around you at certain moments. Because confusion clouds discernment. And when discernment is clouded, decisions become reactive instead of intentional. But the delay you experienced has done the opposite. It has slowed everything down just enough for clarity to catch up. It has given you space to see patterns you would have missed. It has allowed you to feel the difference between peace and pressure, between alignment and urgency, between truth and appearance. And now you are standing at a point where you cannot unsee what you have begun to notice. You cannot go back to moving blindly. You cannot go back to trusting everything at face value. Because once awareness is given, it becomes your responsibility to use it. Archangel Michael makes this clear. What you are sensing now is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to guide you. You are not being shown these things to create fear. You are being shown these things to create clarity. Because the path ahead of you requires precision. It requires you to move with intention, not impulse. To choose with awareness, not assumption. To trust what you feel, not just what you see. And this is why your delay was necessary. Because without it you would not have developed this level of discernment. Without it you would not have recognized what is now becoming obvious to you. Without it you would not be prepared for what is about to come next. And what is coming next will require you to see clearly. Type "I discern" with clarity in the comments if you are ready to trust what your spirit is revealing. Lesson code 4444 is now strengthening your spiritual awareness. There is a kind of pain that only comes from watching something you believed in fall apart. Not something you were unsure about. Not something you casually considered. But something you prayed over. Something you felt aligned with. Something you were convinced was meant for you. And when it didn't open, when it closed, or worse, when it almost opened and then suddenly shut, it left a question echoing in your spirit. Why? Why would something that felt so right not work out? Why would something you asked for be denied? Why would something that seemed so close be taken away? These are not small questions. These are the kind of questions that test your trust, your faith, your understanding of how things are truly working behind the scenes. And this is where most people come to the wrong conclusion. They assume that because a door closed, it must mean they were rejected, that they were not chosen, that they were not enough. But Archangel Michael reveals a deeper truth, one that changes everything about how you see those closed doors. Not every closed door is rejection. Some doors are closed because they are misaligned. Some doors are closed because they are incomplete. And some doors are closed because they are dangerous. But danger does not always look like something obvious. It does not always come with warning signs you can easily recognize. Sometimes, danger looks like opportunity. It feels like progress. It appears to be exactly what you have been waiting for. And that is what makes it so deceptive. Because if it looked wrong, you would never have considered it. If it felt uncomfortable, you would have walked away. But when something looks right and still closes, it creates confusion. It makes you question your judgment. It makes you wonder if you missed something or made a mistake. And that confusion is exactly where clarity must be restored. Because what you saw was only part of the picture. There were details you could not see. There were outcomes you could not predict. There were consequences that had not yet revealed themselves. And if that door had opened fully, you would have stepped into all of it without hesitation. That is why it had to close. Not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to protect you. And protection does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like delay. Sometimes it feels like something being taken away just when you thought it was yours. But what you experienced was not loss. It was intervention. Think about how many times you have looked back at something and realized it was not what you thought it was. A situation that seemed perfect at first but later revealed complications. A person who seemed trustworthy but later showed a different side. A path that looked promising but led to frustration instead of fulfillment. Now imagine stepping into something like that but on a larger scale. A commitment that would have been harder to walk away from. A situation that would have required more of your time, your energy, your peace. A path that would have taken you further away from where you are truly meant to be. That is what was avoided. That is what the closed door prevented. But here is the part that requires deeper understanding. You were not wrong for wanting it. You were not wrong for believing in it. You were not wrong for praying about it. You were only seeing what was visible. And what was visible was not the full truth. Because alignment is not just about what you want. It is about what will sustain you, what will support your growth, what will remain stable when everything else is tested. And not every opportunity, not every relationship, not every path can do that. Some things are only meant to be seen so they can be recognized as not for you. And that recognition often comes through closure. Closure that feels sudden. Closure that feels unexplained. Closure that forces you to step back when you were ready to move forward. But that step back is what saved you. Because if you had stepped forward at that moment, you would not have had the clarity you are beginning to develop now. You would have moved based on emotion, based on expectation, based on what you hoped it would become. But now you are being asked to see it differently. Not as something that was taken from you, but as something that was removed before it could take more from you. This is where trust becomes necessary. Because you will not always get immediate answers. You will not always see the full reason right away. Sometimes the understanding comes later, after time has passed, after more is revealed, after you are able to see the situation from a different perspective. But even without that full understanding, there is one truth you must hold on to. If it was truly meant for you, it would not require force to remain open. It would not collapse under pressure. It would not create confusion in your spirit. What is meant for you will align without resistance that feels unnatural. It will flow without forcing you to ignore your intuition. It will remain without you having to fight to keep it. And anything that does not meet that standard, no matter how appealing it look, was not meant to stay. So the next time you think about that closed door, do not see it as something that denied you. See it as something that redirected you. Because what is ahead of you is not something you will have to chase. It is something that will meet you in alignment. Type "I trust" closed doors in the comments if you are ready to release what was not meant for you. Blessing code 5555 is now restoring your trust in divine redirection. There is a moment that comes in every waiting season, a moment where patience begins to wear thin. A moment where the silence feels too long, the delay feels too heavy, and the desire to move forward becomes stronger than the wisdom to remain still. And it is in that moment, right there, that the greatest danger reveals itself. Not the danger of failure, not the danger of rejection, but the danger of moving too soon. Because moving too soon does not always feel wrong. In fact, it often feels justified. It feels like action. It feels like progress. It feels like taking control of your life instead of waiting for something to happen. But what you must understand is this: timing is not just important, it is everything. Archangel Michael reveals that premature movement has consequences that are rarely immediate, but always impactful. When something is entered into before its time, it carries instability. It may begin with excitement, with momentum, with the illusion that everything is finally falling into place. But beneath that surface there is misalignment. And misalignment always reveals itself eventually. This is why you were delayed. Because there was a version of you, just recently, that was ready to move, ready to act, ready to say yes. And if the opportunity had stayed open just a little longer, you would have stepped into it without hesitation. Not because you were careless, but because you were eager. Because you were ready for something to finally change. But eagerness can be dangerous when it is not guided by clarity. Because eagerness will accept what is available instead of waiting for what is aligned. Think about the pressure you felt in those moments. The sense that if you did not act quickly, you might lose the opportunity. The idea that waiting any longer would cost you something. That pressure did not come from alignment. Alignment does not create fear of missing out. Alignment does not rush you into decisions. Alignment does not make you feel like time is running out. What you felt was urgency without understanding. And urgency without understanding leads to decisions that require correction later. This is why moving too soon is not just about making a mistake. It is about entering into something that will demand more from you than it should. It is about committing to situations that will require you to adjust, to compromise, to fix things that should have been right from the beginning. And here is the deeper truth. When you move too soon, you do not just affect the present, you complicate the future. Because now, instead of moving forward from a place of alignment, you must first undo what was done prematurely. You must step back, detach, recover, and then begin again. And that process takes more time, more energy, more emotional investment than simply waiting would have required. This is what you were being protected from. Not just the wrong situation, but the cost of correcting it later. Because some lessons are not meant to be learned through experience. Some lessons are meant to be avoided through awareness. And your delay has given you that awareness. You may not have realized it at the time, but you were being slowed down for a reason. Not because you were unprepared, but because the situation itself was not prepared for you. There were elements that had not yet aligned, factors that had not yet revealed themselves, outcomes that were still uncertain. And if you had entered into that space too early, you would have been carrying the weight of that uncertainty. And now, instead of carrying it, you are observing it. You are seeing things more clearly. You are noticing the gaps, the inconsistencies, the parts that do not fully make sense. That clarity is not accidental. That clarity is the result of waiting. Because time exposes what urgency hides. When you slow down, you begin to see what was invisible when everything felt rushed. You begin to recognize what does not fit, what does not align, what does not feel stable. And once you see it, you cannot ignore it. This is why patience is not weakness. Patience is protection. It is the space where truth has time to surface. It is the distance that allows you to see the full picture instead of just a moment of it. And this is what you are being asked to embrace now. Not just the delay, but the discipline of not forcing what is not ready. Because what is truly meant for you will not require you to rush into it. It will not demand immediate decisions without understanding. It will not create pressure that overrides your peace. Instead, it will allow you to move with clarity, with confidence, with certainty, and most importantly, with stability. So if you feel that urge rising again, that need to act, to move, to do something just to escape the waiting, pause. Because that feeling is not your signal to move. It is your test to remain still. And if you pass that test, what comes next will not require correction. It will require only acceptance. Type "I will not rush my destiny" in the comments if you are choosing patience over pressure. Lesson code 6666 is now strengthening your timing and restraint. There comes a point in every spiritual journey where logic can no longer carry you forward. A point where explanations fall short, where answers are incomplete, and where clarity has not yet fully arrived. And in that space, right there between what you know and what you do not know, you are faced with a question that cannot be avoided. Will you trust even when you do not understand? Because this is not just a waiting season. This is a test. Not a test of your strength, not a test of your ability, but a test of your trust. Archangel Michael reveals that what you are experiencing right now is a moment of decision that is deeper than it appears. On the surface, it looks like delay. It feels like uncertainty. It seems like things are simply not moving the way you expected. But beneath all of that, something is being measured. Your response, your posture, Your willingness to remain aligned even when the outcome is not yet visible. Because trusting when everything makes sense is easy. Trusting when you can see the path, when you understand the timing, when everything feels predictable. That kind of trust requires no surrender. But trusting when nothing is clear, that is where transformation happens. That is where alignment is proven. That is where your next level is determined. Think about how many times you have wanted an answer, a clear sign, a direct confirmation that what is happening right now is leading somewhere meaningful. You have asked questions in your mind, maybe even out loud. You have searched for certainty, for something solid to hold on to. But instead of clear answers, you were given silence. Instead of immediate clarity, you were given space. And that space has been uncomfortable. Because in that space, you cannot rely on what you see. You cannot rely on what you feel in the moment. You cannot rely on external validation. You are left with one thing: trust. And this is where many people struggle. Because they want understanding before obedience. They want clarity before commitment. They want proof before they are willing to stay still. But that is not how this works. Because if everything were revealed to you in advance, there would be no need for trust. You would simply follow instructions. You would move based on certainty, not faith. And that would not transform you. It would only guide you. But what is happening right now is not just about guiding you. It is about shaping you. It is about developing a level of trust within you that is not dependent on immediate results. Because where you are going will require that kind of trust. There will be moments ahead where decisions must be made without full visibility. Where paths will open that you do not fully understand at first. Where opportunities will require you to move forward based on alignment, not explanation. And if you cannot trust in this season, you will hesitate in those moments. That is why this is a test. Not to make things difficult for you, but to prepare you for what is coming. Because trust is not built when everything is clear. Trust is built when you choose to remain steady even when it is not. You may not realize it, but you have already been practicing this. Every time you chose not to force a situation. Every time you stepped back instead of rushing forward. Every time you paused when something felt off instead of pushing through it. Those were not small moments. Those were acts of trust. And they are building something within you that you will need. Because obedience without understanding is not weakness. It is alignment. It is the ability to recognize that there is a bigger picture even when you cannot yet see it. It is the willingness to stay in position even when movement feels more comfortable. And this is what you are being asked to do now. To stay. To remain grounded. To trust that what is happening, what is not happening, is all part of something that is still unfolding. Because the truth is, if you had full understanding right now, you would not need this process. But the process is what is preparing you. It is what is strengthening your discernment. It is what is stabilizing your decisions. It is what is ensuring that when the moment comes, you will not second guess it. You will recognize it. You will move with confidence. You will know. But until that moment arrives, your role is not to figure everything out. Your role is to remain aligned, to resist the urge to force clarity, to let understanding come in its own time, because it will come, but not before you are ready to receive it without doubt. This is the test, and you are closer to passing it than you realize. Type "I trust" without seeing in the comments if you are choosing alignment over explanation. Blessing code 7777 is now strengthening your faith and inner certainty. There is a truth that becomes impossible to ignore once you enter a season of delay, and the truth is this: waiting does not just reveal things about your path, it reveals things about the people around you. Because when everything is moving forward, when doors are opening, when momentum is strong, it is easy for everyone to appear supportive. It is easy for people to celebrate you when there is something visible to celebrate. It is easy for them to stand beside you when your direction is clear and your progress is obvious. But delay changes the atmosphere. Delay removes the excitement. Delay strips away the visible signs of movement. And in that space, people begin to show who they truly are. Archangel Michael reveals that your waiting season is not only about your alignment, it is also about exposure. Not dramatic exposure, not loud confrontation, but quiet, undeniable revelation about the roles people actually play in your life. You may have already started to notice it. The subtle shifts in behavior, the difference in tone, the absence of encouragement where it once existed, or the presence of opinions that seem to question your direction rather than support it. These are not coincidences, because when you are no longer progressing in a way that benefits others, or fits their expectations, or aligns with their comfort, their true perspective begins to surface. Some people were connected to your momentum, not your purpose. They were comfortable when things were moving, when they could associate with your growth, when your direction made sense to them. But now that things have slowed down, now that clarity is still forming, now that your path is not fully visible, they are unsure. And that uncertainty reveals their alignment. Because those who are truly aligned with you do not require constant evidence to support you. They do not need visible progress to believe in your direction. They do not withdraw when things become unclear. They remain steady. But others, they begin to question. They begin to distance themselves. They begin to project their own doubts onto your situation. Not because they are intentionally trying to mislead you, but because they do not understand what they cannot see. And here is where discernment becomes critical. Because not every voice around you should influence your next move. Not every opinion should shape your decisions. Not every concern should be taken as truth. Some voices are rooted in fear. Some are rooted in limitation. Some are rooted in their own inability to trust a process they have never experienced. And if you are not careful, those voices can pull you out of alignment. They can make you question what you already sensed. They can make you doubt what was already clear. They can make you feel like you need to explain, justify, or prove something that does not require explanation. This is why your delay is also creating distance. Not always physical distance, but energetic distance. You are beginning to feel less connected to certain conversations, less aligned with certain perspectives, less comfortable in spaces that once felt normal. And that shift is not something to resist. It is something to recognize. Because as your awareness grows, your alignment changes. And as your alignment changes, not everyone will remain in the same position in your life. This does not mean conflict is required. This does not mean confrontation is necessary. But it does mean observation is essential. You must watch. You must listen. You must pay attention to how people respond, not just to your success, but to your stillness. Because how someone treats you in your waiting season will tell you more than how they treated you in your rising season. Do they remain supportive when there is nothing to gain? Do they speak life into your situation when there is no visible outcome? Do they respect your process even when they do not understand it? Or do they create pressure, doubt, and subtle resistance? These answers matter, because the people you carry into your next season must be aligned with where you are going, not just where you have been. And your delay is giving you the time to see that clearly, to recognize who adds clarity and who adds confusion, who brings peace and who brings pressure, who supports your alignment and who challenges it in ways that do not feel constructive. This is not about judgment. This is about awareness. Because once you see these patterns, you cannot ignore them. And ignoring them would place you back into the very cycles you are being led out of. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Not everyone who has been with you will go with you. Not everyone who knows you understands you. Not everyone who speaks to you should influence you. And your responsibility in this season is not to fix those dynamics. It is to recognize them. Because recognition is what allows you to move forward without carrying what no longer aligns. So watch carefully. Listen closely. Trust what you feel. Because the people revealing themselves right now are showing you exactly where they stand before your next season begins. Type ISE clearly who is aligned in the comments if you are ready to trust what is being revealed around you. Blessing code 8888 is now activating clarity in your relationships. As this revelation about alignment settles into your spirit, understand this. Every soul that awakens becomes a light for another still searching in darkness. When you release your support through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a message. You are fueling a river that carries truth to those still lost in confusion. The word declares that when you pour out, it shall be poured back into you, pressed down and overflowing, and this moment is your opportunity to step into that living promise. I feel this strongly. If your spirit is stirred right now, this is your invitation to act in obedience, not hesitation. Your seed becomes fire, your generosity becomes oil, and your action becomes a gateway for someone else's breakthrough. As you give, may unseen doors open, may delays break, and may your alignment accelerate in ways only heaven could orchestrate. Step forward now and release what has been placed on your heart. There is something you must understand before anything in your life can truly accelerate, and that is this: speed without alignment leads to collapse. It may look like progress at first. It may feel like things are finally moving. But if the foundation beneath that movement is not stable, the very thing you rush toward will eventually become the thing you must recover from. And this is why you have been slowed down. Not because you are stuck, not because you are behind, but because something within you and around you has been undergoing alignment. Alignment is not a visible process. It does not announce itself. It does not happen all at once. It happens quietly, internally, and often in ways that feel uncomfortable before they feel clear. Archangel Michael reveals that before acceleration is released into your life, there are 3 layers of alignment that must take place: your mindset, your emotional state, and your spiritual awareness. And if even one of these layers is out of place, what comes next will not sustain itself. This is why your delay had been so precise. Because it has not just been about waiting, it hath been about refining. You have been asked to release ways of thinking that once felt normal. Old patterns of reacting, old expectations of how things should unfold, old assumptions about what success looks like for you. These patterns may have worked in previous seasons, but they cannot carry you into what is coming next. And that shift is not easy, because it requires you to let go of what feels familiar before you can fully embrace what is aligned. You may have noticed this happening already. Moments where your usual response no longer feels right. Situations where your old mindset does not bring the same clarity it once did. Decisions that now require deeper thought, deeper awareness, deeper intention. That is alignment taking place. Because before your external world changes, your internal structure must be able to support that change. And this goes beyond mindset. Your emotional alignment has also been shifting. You are learning how to respond instead of react, how to pause instead of rush, how to observe instead of immediately engage. And while this may feel like hesitation at times, it is actually stability forming within you. Because emotional stability is what allows you to move through opportunities without being overwhelmed by them. It is what allows you to make decisions without being influenced by temporary feelings. It is what keeps you grounded when things begin to move quickly. And what is coming will move quickly. That is why this part cannot be skipped. Then there is your spiritual alignment. The part of you that senses what cannot be explained. The part of you that feels what cannot be seen. The part of you that knows even before you fully understand. This is the layer that ties everything together. Because your spiritual awareness is what keeps your mindset clear and your emotions steady. It is what allows you to recognize alignment in real time. And it has been growing. Every moment of delay has strengthened it. Every pause has sharpened it. Every situation that did not fully make sense has expanded it. You are not the same person you were before this delay began. You cannot see things the same way. You cannot move the same way. You cannot trust blindly the way you once did. And that change is exactly what was needed. Because acceleration without awareness creates instability. But acceleration with alignment creates momentum that cannot be easily disrupted. This is what you are being prepared for. A level of movement that does not require constant correction. A path that does not need to be adjusted every time something feels uncertain. A direction that feels clear, not because everything is explained, but because everything is aligned. And when that alignment is complete, acceleration will not need to be forced. It will happen naturally. Doors will open without resistance. Opportunities will connect without confusion. Decisions will feel certain instead of complicated. And most importantly, what comes into your life will remain stable. Because it is built on alignment, not urgency. This is why your delay had to be exact. Because partial alignment would not have been enough. You would have still faced instability. You would have still needed to adjust. You would have still questioned whether you made the right move. But now you are being brought into a position where those questions will no longer control your decisions. Because you will recognize alignment when it appears. You will feel it. You will know it. And you will not need to rush toward it. It will meet you where you are already prepared. So do not resist this process. Do not try to speed it up. Do not assume that nothing is happening just because you cannot see immediate results. Because what is happening right now is what will make everything that comes next sustainable. Type "I am aligning for acceleration" in the comments if you are ready for what is being prepared. Blessing code 9999 is now activating stability and forward movement in your life. There is a moment coming, a moment that will not arrive slowly, not gradually, not in a way that gives you time to overthink it. It will arrive suddenly. And when it does, everything that once felt delayed will begin to make sense all at once. Because divine timing does not always move in increments. Sometimes it moves in shifts. You have been in a season where things felt stretched out, where time seemed longer than usual, where progress felt delayed and answers felt distant. But what you must understand is this: delay does not eliminate movement. It compresses it. It gathers it. It prepares it. And then it releases it all at once. Archangel Michael reveals that what you have been experiencing is not slow progress. It is stored momentum. Every moment of waiting, every decision to remain aligned, every time you chose patience over pressure, it had been building something behind the scenes. And when that momentum reaches its point of release, things will begin to move quickly. Faster than you expect. Faster than you feel ready for. Faster than you imagined they would. But here is the part you must be prepared for. When the shift happens, it will not ask you if you are ready. It will require you to be ready. Because the same stillness that once surrounded you will be replaced by movement. Opportunities will begin to appear. Conversations will begin to connect. Paths that once seemed closed will suddenly open in ways you did not anticipate. And if you are still thinking like the version of you who was waiting, you may hesitate. You may question it. You may second guess whether it is real. That is why this preparation had been necessary. Because the shift is not just about things changing around you. It is about you being able to move with those changes without losing your alignment. Think about how different your perspective is now compared to when this delay first began. Back then, you may have rushed into this moment without thinking. You may have accepted things without fully understanding them. You may have been guided more by emotion than by clarity. But now you are different. You see more. You sense more. You pause more. And the difference is what will allow you to navigate the shift correctly. Because not every sudden opportunity is meant to be accepted. Not every open door is meant to be entered. And when everything begins to move at once, discernment becomes even more important. This is why the delay trained you to slow down. Because when acceleration comes, you must still carry that same awareness with you. You must still observe. You must still listen. You must still feel whether something is truly aligned. Because the danger in sudden movement is not the speed, it is the assumption that everything moving is meant for you. But you now know better. You now understand that alignment matters more than availability. That timing matters more than urgency. That clarity matters more than excitement. And this understanding will guide you through what is coming next. Because the shift will not only bring what is meant for you, it will also reveal what is not. It will place options in front of you. It will create movement in multiple directions. And your ability to choose correctly will depend on how well you have learned in this season of delay. This is why nothing you have experienced hath been wasted. Every moment of waiting hath been shaping your response. Every pause has been strengthening your awareness. Every closed door has been refining your direction. So when the shift happens, you will not be overwhelmed. You will be ready. Not because everything is explained, but because everything within you is aligned. And when alignment meets opportunity, movement becomes effortless. That is what is coming. A moment where things begin to connect without force, where paths begin to open without resistance, where decisions begin to feel clear instead of complicated. And when that moment arrives, you will recognize it, not by how fast it moves, but by how right it feels. Because what is meant for you will not bring confusion. It will bring clarity. It will not create pressure. It will create peace. And it will not require you to question whether it belongs in your life. You will know. That is the shift. And it is closer than you think. Type "I am ready for the shift" in the comments if you feel this moment approaching. Blessing code 1010 is now activating divine acceleration in your life. There comes a moment in every season of delay where something begins to change, not loudly, not dramatically at first, but subtly, quietly, internally. And if you are not paying attention, you might miss it. But if you are aware, if you are truly listening, you will recognize it immediately. Because before your external world shifts, your internal world always shifts first. Archangel Michael reveals that the end of delay is not marked by sudden movement alone. It is marked by a change within you. A shift in how you feel, how you think, how you respond. And this shift is the signal that everything is about to transition. You may have already started to feel it. A calmness that was not there before. A sense of certainty that does not rely on visible proof. A quiet confidence that replaces the urgency you once felt. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. Because when delay is ending, confusion begins to fade. The overthinking slows down. The need to force answers disappears, and in its place there is clarity. Not full clarity, but enough. Enough to move forward without hesitation. Enough to trust what you feel without needing constant reassurance. Enough to recognize what aligns and what does not. This is one of the first signs. You are no longer chasing clarity. Clarity is coming to you. You are no longer searching for direction. Direction is becoming obvious. And most importantly, you are no longer feeling the pressure to rush. Because something inside you knows that movement is near. Another sign is detachment. Not in a way that feels cold or distant, but in a way that feels peaceful. Things that once felt urgent no longer feel necessary. Situations that once demanded your attention no longer hold the same weight. People whose opinions once influenced you no longer carry the same authority in your decisions. This detachment is not loss, it is release. Because you cannot step fully into what is next while still holding on to what belonged to your previous season. And your spirit knows that. So it begins to let go, naturally, without force. You may also notice that opportunities begin to appear, but in a different way than before. They are not rushed. They are not confusing. They do not require you to question everything. Instead, they feel simple, clear, aligned. Even if they are unexpected, they make sense in a way you cannot fully explain. This is another sign. Because when delay ends, what comes next does not create chaos, it creates order. It does not complicate your path, it simplifies it. And this is how you will know the difference. Because what is meant for you will not require you to analyze it endlessly. It will feel right immediately. There is also a shift in your energy. You feel lighter. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of uncertainty the same way. Your patience feels natural, not forced. Your stillness feels stable, not frustrating. And your trust feels grounded, not fragile. This is one of the clearest indicators that something is about to change. Because when you are no longer resisting the delay no longer needs to continue. Read that again. When you are no longer resisting the delay no longer needs to continue. This is the alignment point. The moment where everything you have been learning, everything you have been developing, everything you have been refining comes together. And once that alignment is complete, movement follows. Not slowly, not gradually, but decisively. Doors that once seemed impossible to open begin to open. Paths that once felt blocked begin to clear. Connections that once seemed distant begin to align. And you will find yourself moving forward without the struggle that once defined your journey. But here is what you must remember in this moment. Do not return to the mindset of urgency. Do not lose the awareness you have gained. Do not abandon the discernment that was developed in your delay. Because the same clarity that brought you to this point is what will guide you through what comes next. You are not stepping into something uncertain. You are stepping into something prepared. Prepared for you and prepared by you. Because your delay was not just about waiting for the right moment. It was about becoming the right version of yourself for that moment. And now that version is here. That is the sign. That is the shift. And that is how you know your delay is ending. Type "I feel the shift" in the comments if you recognize this change within you. Blessing code 1111 is now activating divine timing and forward movement in your life. This is the moment everything has been leading to. Not the delay. Not the confusion. Not the waiting. But this realization that you are no longer who you were when this journey began. Because the truth is, the delay did not just protect you, it transformed you. It reshaped your thinking. It refined your discernment. It strengthened your patience. and deepened your awareness. And now, you are standing at the edge of something that cannot be entered the way you once would have entered it. You cannot go forward with the same mindset. You cannot move with the same urgency. You cannot carry the same attachments. Because what is in front of you now requires a different version of you. And that version is ready. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity in this moment. This is not the time to fall back into old patterns. This is not the time to second-guess what has already been revealed. This is not the time to reopen doors that were closed for your protection. This is the time to rise, to stand fully in what you have learned, to move forward with the awareness you have gained, to trust what has been shown to you even if others do not understand it. Because the window that is opening now will not remain open forever. Opportunities aligned with your purpose do not stay available indefinitely. They appear at the right moment, for the right version of you, and they require a response that matches that alignment. And here is the part you must not ignore. You have been prepared for this moment, but preparation alone is not enough. You must act, not with urgency, not with fear, but with clarity. Because clarity removes hesitation. Clarity removes confusion. Clarity allows you to step forward without needing constant reassurance. And that is what is being asked of you now. To move when it is time. To recognize when alignment is present. To trust that what is coming into your life now is not random. It is the result of everything you have endured, everything you have learned, everything you have released. But there is also a warning in this moment. Do not let familiarity pull you backward. Do not let comfort convince you to stay where you have already outgrown. Do not let the voices that doubted your process influence your decisions now that the shift is here. Because what is ahead of you will not look like what you are leaving behind. It will require new thinking, new responses, new standards. And if you try to carry old patterns into a new season, you will limit what this next chapter can become. This is why this moment is critical. Because you are no longer in preparation. You are in transition. And transition requires movement. It requires you to step forward, even if everything is not fully explained. It requires you to trust what you feel, even if it does not match what others expect. It requires you to accept that you have changed and that your life must now reflect that change. This is your final call. Not to wait, not to question, but to rise, to move with intention, to choose alignment over familiarity, to walk forward without looking back at what has already been revealed as misaligned. Because the delay served its purpose. The warning was delivered. The preparation is complete. And now the responsibility is yours. What you do next will determine how this next season unfolds. Not because you are being tested again, but because you are now equipped. You have the awareness. You have the discernment. You have the clarity. And you have the timing. So do not miss this window. Do not hesitate when the moment arrives. Do not doubt what you already know, because everything you have been through has brought you here, and what is ahead of you is ready. Type "I step into alignment" now in the comments if you are ready to move forward. Blessing code 1212 is now activating your next chapter. As this final call settles into your spirit, understand this: what has been awakened in you is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to flow through you and reach others still waiting in their delay. Every time you release a seed into this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a voice. You are igniting a harvest of transformation in lives you may never see, but heaven records. The word declares that when you give, He opens the windows of heaven. And I declare over you now that your obedience in this moment will unlock doors no delay could hold back. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to respond, not casually, but prophetically, as an act of alignment with what God is doing through you. Your giving becomes a river, your faith becomes fire, and your action becomes the key that releases breakthrough not only for others, but for your own life. Do not wait. Step into this moment and release what hath been placed on your heart.